I I just looked at myself in the screen and I'm like, oh, I look so nerdy today. Be that as it may, let's try to objectively look beyond my taste in clothing today. And my name's Dale. I'm going to help you out with just an introductory video. But if there's any questions afterwards, or if we should keep on negotiating what works and what doesn't, we're going to find way too much stuff. So the idea of this video is to show you some of the places that I would look, some of the ways that I would use to narrow down the topic, and then it falls upon you to find 10, but you're going to find more than 10. And how do you negotiate those for your final paper or whatever you're working on? I'll put this up here. Okay, so 10 articles, we know what that we're looking for. And we're looking at communication failure within the pandemic. When I was thinking of it, there's like public health campaigns, there's like the Department of Health, there's like the Department of State, there's all these different people who are communicating about these things. So one thing we could talk about is like who's doing the communicating and what are they calling it? So here's tip number one, it's a Google search. So if you go to the Google, I'll go so we can see the big screen. Got it. Okay, you can put in, oh, I'm so distracted. Oh, that's right. COVID. If you put in a word or any words, that will be the context of whatever follows afterwards if you put a colon there. So if you do recipe and COVID, you'll find recipes for like soup and things that make people feel better or less bored. If you type in communication and COVID, so you get it, you can mix and match. So we could do communication failure, or we could do public health campaign, or we could do particular people. But let's start with this one, because these are your words. And I thought, oh, that's a great place to start. So here we're getting some keywords. So public messaging. And you just write those down. Communication failures, communications. Oh, CDC. Who are the people doing the communicating? Center for Disease Control. They do a lot of the official, this is the status of this. Public health messaging. Let's just do public health. So public health is kind of like where you're looking after, instead of one person, you're looking after multiple populations. Oh, and you can look at any of these as well. Ooh, I don't know, contagion. Can fail to connect. No. Vaccine communications? Is that a thing? We don't know. I would say public health campaign. I know that's a word or a phrase because there's a class in comm about public health campaigns. Seeing failure quite a lot, but that's because that's right here. So what if we switched to campaign? You're going to get a whole other different thing. Oh, then there's public education. So I'm seeing public shows up a lot. So as you go, write down notes, whether you've got it on a piece of paper or in like OneNote or a Google Doc or whatever. Make sure and write down your keywords because as we go into the databases, we're going to be looking at things and we're going to have like some great hits and we're going to have something where, oh, no one's talking about vaccine communications. So that's step number one. Step number two, let's do a brainstorm in the library catalog. The library catalog is just this main search, and it looks at books, book chapters, thousands and thousands and thousands of articles, movies. There's even video games in here. There's even a Nintendo Switch that you can check out. But this is kind of like all the disciplines together. So this will be health, as well as communication, as well as sociology, as well as psychology. So let's do COVID or pandemic or COVID-19 or, so I put stuff in quotes if it is more than one word. Is corona, I don't think coronavirus. coronavirus. So you can put all those synonyms in related terms. And then you can do another line. And let's do public messaging. You know what? Let's just do public in a line. Because we know this is our population. I mean, pretty much everyone talked about public, public, public. And then the next one, let's do messaging or communication or campaign or education. I think that caught all of them. Yeah, health is part of it, but we're looking at like the message. Okay, what are the criteria for failure? This is something you get to determine as you go. So let's do a search just at the outset, and let's see what we get. So what this means is it will get everything has a description of it. So books have like a title, an author, a publication date, abstracts, and things like that. This will look in those. It doesn't look in the full text. It just looks in that metadata. So it's going to look for any one of these. After it returns all those search results, it's going to have narrowed down to whatever has public, and then it's going to narrow it down to those things that have messaging. So if you wanted more results, you would get rid of one of these. If you wanted less results, you would add another line or add more keywords. Let's see what happens. I bet there's going to be a zillion. 87,000. Well, that's not too bad. Oh, Lord. Okay, so let's go back. I want to go back to my search. How do I go back to my search? Search criteria. Oh, thank goodness. Let's add another one. Let's see if we can narrow it down from 87,000. Oh, let's try failure. So failure infers that there's a criteria for success. So what we could do is we could say, well, one's an antonym and one's a, the opposites of each other. See what happens now. Because here they'll talk about what it took. Hey, that narrowed it down a ton. So here's some of this successful recovery of pneumonia with a kidney transplant. That's not going to help us. So you'll have to go through some of these things and figure out what the most important thing is. I would argue that messaging or communication campaign is the most important. So let's pick and put this in the title. So instead of any field, let's put it in the title of whatever the article, and this is going to narrow it down even further. It's pretty exciting. Whoa, 579. Distance education, innovative approaches. I'm not seeing anything. Oh yeah, well, it's like distance ed, political comm. Oh, okay, here we go. This one would be relevant. How do you narrow it down to articles? If you have to get peer reviewed, there's this handy little checkbox over here. Narrows it down even farther. Hit my head and apply. Did I hit apply? So the distance ed. Oh, no. So when you're looking at failure, also contrast this with things that have been published, like this one, Effective Crisis Communication by the Government. And there's a case study of Kerala. Well, that rings a bell, but I can't recall where Kerala is. Is that India? And when you find these things, you would go in. So you only have 379, but you could narrow it down even farther. And you could say, let's look in a particular subject. And let's see if they have, you can narrow it down to communication or public health. And so you could get rid of some of these other places if you wanted to. Let's go straight to communication. We've had such a good run of success so far. I feel like it's like gambling where I think I've risked too much by narrowing it down that far. Hey, there's Kerala. Risk communication, failure public messaging. Okay, every now and then I have a good day. This looks pretty good. So I made this YouTube video so you could repeat this. Some of the, when you're looking at these, by the way, if you're unfamiliar with how to build a narrative with 10 articles, essentially you want, imagine you want to go from one side to the other side, and there's like a rope bridge in between, kind of like Indiana Jones sort of a thing. Each plank that you put in the bridge is helping somebody who doesn't understand the topic. After they read each one of the articles that you pick or the points that you get, they will then be on the other side where they completely understand it. A reference consultation in 15 minutes. I still got time. How do you figure out what the main point of the article is? If you go into the abstract, and typically these will say full text available. If you can't find one that you gotta have, email me and I'll show you how to get full text. But typically it'll show up something like this, and then you'll have to click on something else and hope for the best. And this one just dumped us in a random place, so I'm gonna try a different one. Let's try PubMed. Page not available. This is one where I would have to help you sort it out on how to get this one. Hey, third time's the charm. Every scholarly article kind of looks the same. It'll start out very, very serious. It's like a person showing up with a lab coat. There's no decoration or anything like that. But they're abstract, which you can see right here just barely. COVID-19 posed many challenges for local health departments. Stay-at-home orders impacted. Okay. So the point of this one is how like telehealth was impacted. So like seeing your doctor over Zoom. And that's an element of communication that you could talk about. Like how did we move from one communication to another? So that's not even talking about coronavirus. It's talking about the context of the pandemic and what did we do to mitigate that. That might be another angle that you could apply, but that would be like one plank in that rope bridge in between. Okay. Oh, and there's citation generators in a lot of these too that are usually pretty good. If you do an APA, MLA, this one should be like more lowercase, but you get the idea. Let me know how it goes. Again, I am dale.larson@utah.edu. I'm happy to help, but give it a start with this one and see if you don't track down a narrative that you're looking for with these scholarly articles. And I think you'll be in good shape.